Lemonade and match. It's unexplainable. It's unconditional. It's unforgettable. Unstoppable. So intentional. It's so invitable. Indescribable.
Hello, and welcome to his
and her perspective.
And here at his and her perspective, what do we do, Vaun?
Here at his and her perspective, we find common ground to harmonize relationships.
That's exactly what we do. And guess what, y'all? We have officially been doing it for 1 whole year today. Aren't you excited about that?
Yeah, that's an accomplishment. You know, most people don't make it quite that long, and they certainly don't keep it quite as spicy as we have for that long. So, you know, kudos to us, right? Pat ourselves.
Yes, pat, you know, the off the shoulder kind of move. Yeah. Today we are going to have a very good show. Y'all are in for a treat. This is our Juniversary Conversations Straight No Chaser Father's Day special. And we have some amazing guests that are going to come on and give y'all some fire today. The importance of a strong father's presence is what we're going to discuss today. And so y'all, if you are looking at us right now, make sure that you are liking, loving, give us in the heart. Go ahead and click the heart. We got some people on here. We ain't got enough hearts on there. Click the heart. It does not hurt you. It's not going to do anything bad to you. But if you share, guess what you're going to do? You're going to show somebody else that you care. So please make sure that you are sharing, because sharing is caring. Lastly, well, not lastly, but then next, if you are looking at us, make sure that you tell us who you are and where you're chiming in from so that we can go ahead and say hello to you. Happy Father's Day, brother.
Gratitude. I appreciate it. Thank you much.
So how is your Father's Day? I'm sure it has been amazing because you have an amazing family that has been loving on you today.
It's good. It's good. I have no complaints.
Yes. Good. I'm so excited. This is going to be so good. Make sure that today we have, because our guests we may not be able to take on any phone calls, but you know, for the future reference, you can call in and speak with us, 304-60-ASK-US. That's 304-60-ASK-US, and then talk to us online while we're here. So I'm excited about this. Let's bring on in. Let's see who else we got on here. We got Danielle. Hello, Danielle. Thank you so much for wishing us a happy anniversary. We appreciate it. She says happy Father's Day.
Thank you, Danielle. Appreciate it.
And we got Kevin Allen from Ingleside, Texas. Thank you so much for joining us. So if you haven't already, make sure that you're following all of our pages. Coach Michelamonè on all social media platforms. Vaun-The Love Alchemist on all social media platforms. All things relevant, ATR, on all social media platforms so that you can keep up with what we are doing. Hello, Mama Cheryl. How are you doing today? Are you clicking? That's you clicking?
Yeah, my fault. Let me put my fingers in my pocket.
Happy anniversary. Thank you so much, Sierra. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So listen, we got some amazing brothers here today. If y'all have missed them talking, y'all are in for a treat, because getting all of these brothers in one spot is a treat. Absolutely. So let's be without further ado, let's go ahead and get in and let's go ahead and introduce these brothers. Hey, Desi, how are you? We love you over there. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. So hello, let's bring on Brother Garthion. Brother Garthion, how are you? Happy Father's Day. You can't hear you, muted.
I should know better than that. So thank you for the Happy Father's Day. I certainly appreciate it. And Happy Father's Day to you too, Brother Vaun.
Thank you, sir. Likewise, brother.
So, Brother Garthion, tell us who you are. Tell the people who don't, our audience, who you are, and what they need to know about you.
Sure. My name is Garthion Muhammad. I think that the biggest thing you should know about me is the biggest thing is I love helping people. But that's the half. The other half is I've been wedded. You know how we always talk about the difference between wedded and married. We'll talk about that later. But I've been wedded for 24 years, almost a quarter of 25 years next year, and I'm not 50. I think that's a freaking big deal.
That
It's a
is.
big deal to be in a relationship with someone and go through those trials and tribulations and those struggles. And I am the father of 6.
Oh, yes.
So,
Love it. So you got a lot of experience to bring to this table.
yes, I got some.
Love it. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. So let's bring in Brother John McClung Jr. Hello. Happy Father's Day.
Amazing Father's Day to my brothers, and hello to you as well.
Thank you.
I'm Chaplain John McClung Jr., owner of I Am a Testimony of Carol, international speaker, selling author, and father of 32 years to an amazing son.
Love it. Thank you so much. We appreciate you coming on to our show. Let's bring on Brother James. Brother James, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'll say happy Father's Day to all the men here. And it is definitely always great to see you, Coach Michelamonè. Great to see you and hear you.
Happy Father's Day.
I'm Brother James. I'm the host of Judas Den Community Empowerment Show that comes on every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Plus, I have been married now, just like Garthion, 24 years. I have 2 beautiful daughters, 3 grandsons. So it is definitely a joy to be here.
Yes, I love it. So all these men have their own shows. Brother Garthion has become. Go ahead. Yes.
And I'm listening to them like, wow, how dare me, right? I am the co-host, the other half of our show, Becoming Better, Real Talk Relationship series that happens every Sunday at 8 o'clock Eastern. May not happen today, guys. This is probably going to be after we do it because we'll be on a plane coming out of St. Louis.
Okay. Well, we thank you so much. We really appreciate your beautiful time and you blessing us with the time that you have. So we're going to get right into this. This is going to be wonderful. One of the things I want to really point out is that throughout the course of history, we've had studies done. We've had all these different statistics done about Black fatherhood, and it has been a disparity between the numbers because most of this information is coming from a one-sided era, right? Coming from Black mothers, maybe they have been jilted, maybe they feel some kind of way, or maybe they're not. So it's not given the Black father a really good voice, which is why we're doing this today. So I really wanted to talk about some of the things that have been said. We want to dispel some myths about Black fatherhood and why we believe that a strong Black father and their presence is very important in the community overall. So, but first of all, let's talk about y'all. So tell me, Garthion, who has been your mentor growing up?
Oh, wow.
Hey, before you do that, hey, brother, whenever we're not speaking, let's mute our mics so that it can be heard. Go ahead, Brother Garthion.
Wow, man, I'm still thinking about that question. Well, I would have to say one of my mentors coming up. When you're talking about somebody that was consistent, I ran into a man. Was the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I heard him when I was 16 years old, and in listening to him. And then eventually joining the Nation of Islam, there was a man we have what we call captains. He was my captain. His name was Jerry. Brother Jerry was like my father. Like he did a lot for me. He taught me a lot through his example, right? And it became more than just a relationship of me being a soldier, so to speak. And I use that, and you may not understand it, and I don't want to take too much time with it. But he was that for me. You know what I mean? When I quick story, when we were looking for a place, my now wife and I, he looked at me, he said, did you go look for a place? I said, yes, sir. He said, does Andrea like it? I said, yes, sir. He said, then get it. Now, that may seem inconsequential to some, but that spoke volumes.
Yeah.
Make sure she likes it. Don't get what you want. Get what both of you want. But make sure she likes it. If you like it and she doesn't, don't get it.
That's beautiful. I love that because that's more of what we need, because that's part of what Coach Vaun is always talking about, that cooperation. And that's beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much. So Brother James, tell us who was your mentor growing up? You muted. Let me unmute you. I can't. There you go.
My parents both passed away when I was real young. I think my mother, she passed away when I was 4 months old. My father passed away when I was in the 4th grade. So I really never got a chance to know that side of my family. But it was my uncle, Nathaniel Smith, who was that mentor for me. I remember watching him just go to work every day, just little things that he'd done around the house, just the small things that I used to watch him do. He became my mentor as far as his character, the way he carried himself. Even to this day, he's the only father that I know. And and it's so many other men, because I went on it was almost like a pilgrimage just to find out what good manhood really was. And just like Brother Garthion, Minister Louis Farrakhan played a major role in, as far as my decision making as I was growing up as a young man. So I give that, those kudos to so many different men out there who taught me the way of the route not to go, and so but yeah, it was my uncle Nathaniel Smith, who was definitely instrumental in the man that I am today.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you so much, Brother James, for that. I appreciate it. We appreciate that. Tell us, Brother John, who was your mentor?
Man, these three brothers can answer that. The greatest mentor that has impacted my life was the late, great Pastor John E. McClung Sr., my father. There is no doubt in my mind that the impact and example that he has for me growing up and to this day made me the person that I am, as far as being able to love, help, and serve people in the capacity with the gifts and talents that I have. I always tell these brothers, the greatest TV show I've ever seen is the one that my mother and father displayed in our home. And there's every channel that I could possibly turn on when it came to them was a great channel to look at. And so there have been other individuals, uncles and people that I serve with from a standpoint of mentorship that have made an impact in other areas, but they would have never been able to get the real me in reference to who I am today without the impact that my father made on on my life and my brother's lives.
I'm gonna stop unmuting myself because I keep muting. So, Brother Vaun, tell us who was your mentor growing up?
I love listening to Brother John tell that story, because mine was quite the opposite. My father, he had some challenges, and so he was largely absent from my life. And so children learn not only by what they see you do or hear you say, but they learn by what they see you do. But the reverse effect of that is sometimes the pain of your absence can be just as much of a teacher.
Yeah.
And so my father was absent, and that caused me a lot of pain. And so one thing that stuck with me was I knew that I wouldn't do that to my children.
Yeah.
And so my grandfather also served as a bumper for that, and through that shaping. And so as I began to go into my teenage years, like Brother Garthion, there was Minister Farrakhan, there was Malcolm X, and one key figure was Dr. Amos Wilson.
Nice.
I still listen to that brother. I mean, rest in power. I still listen to him today to gain some of the insights that he shared as far as rearing children and his ideas on what it means to interact harmoniously and healthily with your mate. So, yeah, that's my Mount Rushmore, I guess.
So back that up, Vaun, with what do you believe fatherhood is?
Oh man, you want me to go first?
Yeah, you want to go backwards.
Yeah, as much as anything else, I think we are providers, we are protectors, we are teachers, And again, I mean, we're teaching even when we don't realize that we're teaching. So I think it's incumbent upon us to carry ourselves in a way that is honorable and integrity. They say integrity is not just doing what's right because someone's looking, it's doing the right thing even when you think no one's looking. And I emphasize think no one's looking because somebody is always looking.
Yeah.
Right. Now, some people might say the God, Father God in heaven or whatever, but I say the God that's in you is always looking. So you're always recording your actions even when nobody else is around. So I don't want to take up too much time. I'm going to pass that on to the brothers.
That's good. Brother John, what's fatherhood to you?
Oh, amazing question. There's three things. I was thinking about this earlier today because of the template that my father created for us. I think in fatherhood, there's three things that has to be done. You got to have an amazing foundation for you and your family. Your family cannot be solid unless you're solid. So you got to have a solid foundation. Then you got to have this. You got to have structure. You got to have this amazing structure for your life. And I always talk about when people come into your life, they need to come into your life with you doing something. Whether your purpose, your gifts, your talents, you have to have some type of structure so you're not unstable, because a double-minded man is unstable. So that man has to be solid in his structure. And then lastly, you got to have some covering. You got to be able to cover yourself. You got to be able to cover your family. You got to be able to cover your community, wherever you are. When individuals come into your life and they see this solid man with a great structure, they understand that when they come up next to this individual or they're in the same room, that there's some covering about this person that impacts and add value and change and can change their life. And those three things encompass so many other characteristics that a man can have, but he's got to have a solid foundation. He's got to have a great structure for his life, and he's got to have the ability to cover.
Love that. Love that. Brother James, what's fatherhood for you?
Well, I totally agree with what John said. You have to have a foundation, and it also takes responsibility. It's going to take your commitment. You're going to have to commit to what you said you was going to commit to long after the feeling of commit that you said it in has gone away. So you have to be committed. You can't just go in there halfway. There's going to be times you're going to get hit. There's going to negativity is going to always come in. You're going to always experience that. But I always say this, anytime you stand for something going to always come against you. And so you're going to have to be built for that, because it's bigger than you. Fatherhood is much bigger than me. There are other people that are involved in this. And I always say this, when it comes to me taking care of myself or me doing something that's prosperous for the family, think about the people that will benefit from you doing the right thing. And so it's much bigger than you. And so that's where my commitment lies. Sometimes if it takes me going without to ensure that my family is taken care of, then that's what I got to do. Like I was explaining earlier, I was talking to Brother Vaun. If I got to be the simp, if I got to be the beta, whatever I got to be, but if it means that I'm taking care of my family and making sure that my family is secure, then that's what I got to do, and I'm committed to it.
Yeah, sounds like that good sacrifice. Brother Garthion, what's fatherhood for you?
I'm loving that question. I'm thinking about my own childhood and what I went through, which was the complete opposite of what John had. And I want to do everything for my children that my father was not for me. Because you said, what does it mean to me?
Yes.
Give you a generous or a general definition of father. But fatherhood is different for everyone. Yeah. So when I think about what I had versus what I did not have, and I consider my children's eyes when they look at me, what do they see? What do they experience from me as their father? Not as, and men out there that are listening, you're not a father if you're not taken care of. Just because you had a child doesn't give you father. And Also, please understand, if you don't have any children, but you're caring for children, that also makes you a father.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's real important that we study and understand who we are affecting with that terminology, father. Right? I am the
Yes.
father for those that may not have, as an example, with some of my students. I've had some of my students tell me in the past, I didn't have a father, but I had you.
Mm. Mm.
So it's bigger than just my family. It is that, but it's also something else, as Brother James was saying. But I think about my own upbringing with children, and what I am to them through all of my flaws, my mistakes, my errors, frailties, but I am still that. An
Yeah.
older brother once told me, he said, listen, Jay, he said, you have to be the definition of father and husband, lest you lose the title.
Mm.
You lose the title when you don't act out the definition. And
Yeah.
I'll right there.
I love that. I love that. And that takes me into, so I want you to answer this question twofold, Garthion. Tell me, what is it that you most enjoy about fatherhood? And tell me the biggest, how can I put this? The one mistake that you've made as a
I'm,
father.
I'm gonna start with the mistake first. I was there is no book that you get. There's no manual.
Right.
Nobody, when you had a child, said, hey, here's this book, here's this manual on how to raise that child, because that child is going to be different than other children, right? And so I think the error that I made, or the mistake that I made with my first son, I was too hard. I
Mm.
was too rigid. I loved him and I hugged him and I kissed him 1,000 times, but I was too something else. I was too hard on him, man. I still carry some of my father with me.
Mm.
I knew I didn't want to be him, but people sometimes live through what's called valences. What is a valence? A valence is when you are acting out the temperament or spirit of somebody else that is not you, based on what you have been nurtured through, right? And so I became that. I'm not that with my daughters or with my other children, but with the first one and partially the second one, I was a little too rigid, right? So that was that.
Yeah.
And you said, what do I love about being a
What you
father?
most enjoy, yes.
Oh man, we went to the Cheesecake Factory the other day. And what I love to do and what I did was I took a step outside myself and I watched my family.
Mm.
I watched them laugh. I watched them smile. I watched them just enjoy one another. And I listened to the laughter as it filled the air. And I took it in. And I so enjoyed that and those kinds of moments. Sometimes you have to make memories,
Yeah.
right? You have to force those things to happen. They're gonna happen organically once you get to the where you're going, so to speak. But
Yeah.
it was just that's what I enjoy most.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for that vulnerability too, because we have to know that it's nothing wrong as a man. Because these are some. If we want to put titles in, and I know that most of them don't believe in this title, but if we want to put titles on this whole alpha thing, these y'all are looking at alpha males. These men are taken care of. I've watched them and listened to them, are taking care of what family is. So to see that vulnerability, that's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Brother James, tell me the one mistake and the most thing that you enjoy about fatherhood.
I think the mistake that I made is when I met my wife, and she had a stepdaughter was 7 years old, and fatherhood was new to me, and so I went in with this thought process of what I used to be when I was out there, and I was just like Garthion, I was kind of hard on her. Yeah, we are still close as ever to this day. But I learned over time that not only just being a father, but I also had to be there for her in certain times. I had to be that father to her that she did not experience. I had to be not so much as being a friend, but be that confidant that she can lay her shoulders on, because now she's a female. And so I couldn't just come in just hard, but that's what I was doing. And I was all about the rules, the rules, the rules. You can't do this and you can't do that. And I learned over time that that doesn't work. So I learned how to communicate with her. I learned how to talk to her. I learned how to be that shoulder that she needed to cry on. So by the time we had our second daughter, then I was fully invested in that. I learned from other people. I talked to different mothers, different fathers, and I think that's one of the mistakes that I made. And it's amazing, as the years went by, she knew that bothered me. And in the middle of church one day, she just spoke up and said, I know you've been carrying this for a long time. Stop carrying this, because I understand. And I think that is when the weight of that fell off of me, because I felt like I made those mistakes. The beauty of being a father is just like Brother Garthion said, it's just watching them, having that opportunity to watch them grow up, to become the women that they are today, just to watch them go through certain things and make it through, listening to what my wife and I have taught them, and then they're growing into their own. They're able to make their mistakes, they're able to clean up their mistakes, and they're able to get it right. And I think that is one of the beauties of just letting them know that anytime, regardless of what goes on, I'm here.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of just being there, just being that father, doing what God has called me to do. And I know if I'm not clear on any other purpose in my life, being a father, I'm definitely clear on that.
I love that. I love that. And especially the fact that you all are talking about the details and watching, because so many times we hear women who are thinking that you're not paying attention. Y'all are paying attention. You're just doing it in a different way than we or women would naturally do it. Brother John, tell us, what's the one mistake that you've made and what you enjoy most about fatherhood?
From a mistake standpoint, I want to speak prior to becoming a father. I would say probably my greatest mistake, and I'm bold enough to talk about this particular thing because it affected me in the long run, and good and bad. I didn't stay under my father long enough. Let me say that again. I did not stay under my father's tutelage and wisdom long enough. I left at 18. I left 3 months after I graduated. I was ready to go, and I left. And I missed out on some of the most amazing wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that would have prepared me much sooner. And now that ain't for everybody, because they may not have had that in their life from a standpoint of having someone be that father example. But for me, that's what I missed out on. That was my greatest mistake going into fatherhood, because it affected me, because I didn't know as much as I could have known, because he was a father of 3. So, my brother and I, we were a year and a day apart. And then we had a brother that our youngest brother is 15 years difference from me. So there were a lot of things that he wasn't privy to as the youngest brother that I had to be as the oldest brother. And so a lot of that information that I could have used in my life earlier, I missed out on, and I'm able to relive it now that it has allowed me to make this amazing impact on my son. So the second part to that question, the greatest thing about being a father has been keeping my word. You see, it's important no matter how good or how bad the situation might be, because me and my son's mother, we divorced 4 or 5 years after we were married. So I got married young as well. And so I still didn't have all of the insight that I just spoke about in reference to my son. But there was one thing that was said to me by by a young lady that I was friends with, who had gone through being a child of a divorced family. She said, "John, you will get through this part, but the part you need to get through is keeping your word to your son all through your life." And so that stuck with me for the 32 years that I've had my son, even when it took me some time to follow up and follow through on something that I may have shared with him or spoke to him about, or he may have had an expectation about when it came to me, I never not met my word. And so that is extremely important because, see, as men, we make some promises, boy. We say some things that sound good in the moment, and our families absorb those words because they're powerful.
Yes.
When you say, son, I'm coming to pick you up at 6, and you don't come, that's a powerful word that impacts their life for the rest of their life. Because they're going to have those moments where they remember, Dad, you said you was going to be here at such and such a time. You was going to take me here and there. Never happened. He's impacted. The woman in his life, if he says, listen, I'll be here. I'm going to take care of him. I'll send this. I'll send that, whatever it might be. And he doesn't do it. Now you have 2 people that are damaged. You got her damaged because she can't trust, somebody's word. She definitely can't trust your word because you're not following through. And so it makes an impact when you keep your word, guys. Yeah. And that I have done with my son. I even did it with his mom during the course of our time. And it has made a difference. She and I are so cool. I can pick up the phone and talk to her, or she can call me on whatever days it is. But the impact on my son, to know his father kept his word, it has made him a better young man in every aspect of his life. And that's what I would say you must do, is keep your word.
Right. Absolutely. Man, Brother Vaun, go ahead and answer those questions.
I would like to cherry pick something that each of them said, right?
Okay.
I think I'll go here. I had 4 children. We produced 4 children, my wife and I. And what I underestimated was the value of getting to know each one and foster a relationship individually with each one. So I thought that I could issue unilateral or just standards across the board, and what's good for one is good for all. And I think I underestimated the critical importance of getting to know each one and then tailoring my parenting toward their individual specific needs. That's one. The second one, with my son, like Brother Garthion said, I was inflexible. I was very rigid, too hard. And I thought that being sensitive was synonymous with being soft. Right. And I didn't want my son to be soft. So I was trying to make him tough. And by default, I was alienating him rather than reaching him through what essentially amounts to understanding that in his sensitivity, he was tough in his own way. My son is 6'1", 260 pounds. He's about as tough as they come, but, and I've since been able to repair some of that, but those were part of the mistakes. Here's one more. I'm gonna lay this one on a little bit, because I got married at 18, and so there was a lot of learning, especially since I didn't have the model that prepared me for that. And so in that, I'm saying your job as a parent is to prepare you're not raising children, you're raising somebody else's complement, somebody else's husband or wife. And so in so doing, one of the best things that you can do as a father is to see them, to allow them to see you love their mother.
Yeah.
Right. And those were the early years, and me and my wife were very rocky, and these are their formative years. And so I had to hustle backwards to kind of undo, or to work to undo, a lot of those painful arguments, and we yelling, and at 19, 20, 22, you don't know what you're doing. You don't understand the seriousness and the magnitude of what you're doing. So those are the mistakes. I could keep going, but I'm gonna stop on that one. And I would say one of the greatest joys, I'll give you 2 real quick. One is earning their respect so that they want to know what daddy thinks.
Love that.
You got people who are, 30 years old, and you can hear yourself coming through their voice as they regurgitate some of the life lessons and some of the principles that you've instilled in them. And so even after all those mistakes that I made, hearing them regurgitate some of those principles, those insights, and then even being interested in wanting to know what my opinion is on how they're going to move in their life. And then I think the cherry on top is I think that the best parents get promoted to grandparents. And so I think the sweetest part about being a father is the chance to become a grandfather. And I don't think it gets any better than that. It hasn't for me anyway. So I'm looking at my grandson looks more like my father than I do.
Wow.
Right. And so even though my father has transitioned, biologically, genetically, he's still present in my grandson. So I know I can get long-winded, but I stopped there.
I love that. I love that. For y'all fathers that are out there, happy Father's Day to you all. Happy Father's Day to my dad who may be watching. And please make sure that you're giving us the heart, sharing this with someone, because this is going to give you some good wisdom from the male perspective, so that you can really be able to pass that on. Brother Garthion, please. I don't. Where are we at on time, Brother Garthion?
I was just texting. What's going to happen is I'm here at a friend's house now, and I'm gonna probably go off camera for a minute and see. Hopefully the signal will hold while I'm driving, or Andrea will drive, and I can try to stick in as long as I can. I'll be here for another few minutes. So
okay. Okay. Well, tell us one of the things I really want to know, because right now in this era, many of our relationships in our communities are really being affected. What do you believe is the impact of Black fatherhood has on the relationships, familial and romantic relationships in the Black community?
What was that? What was the last thing you said? What in what relationships?
In the family relationships, as well as romantic relationships in the Black community. What impact does Black fatherhood do for that? Man,
it's everything. Like it's everything. When you're talking about, I like to give stories and examples. I watch people watch me and my family. I watch how they watch us interact. I watch how they're amazed at how we interact. I watch them amazed at the fact that, hell, I'm still there. I love the shock and awe when I tell them I've been together with the same woman for 24 years.
Yes.
I love the shock and awe and surprise on their face when I tell them, I have 6 children all by the same person. And the successes that we've had. I love to share that and watch the reaction, because I know that they're not used to. It's uncommon. It's unfamiliar territory to see that a Black man can be with another Black woman for decades, and they have children together, right? And they're surviving, and not only surviving, they're actually happy and can tell you, and you can see it, and you can feel the energy that's coming off of them. I love that. But it's everything, because what it shows is that we as a people and as a community are better than what is shown to us as a community through the various media points, through social media. No, we're not all of us thugs and we got 5 and 6 different babies. No, we all not that. We're professionals too, right? We love our wives. We love our women. We love the family
construct.
Thank you. The family unit.
Yes.
Right? It's important that we see and that we share, brothers, when we have these kinds of units, so people can have something to aspire to. But if they're always aspiring to hoeing, y'all know how I am. So,
come on.
But if they always aspiring to being with this one and that one, and one every day of the week, and how can I see, it becomes a problem then. Then the outlook is Black men can't, Black men don't. Papa was a Rolling Stone. And those kinds of things that happen in our community. So it's very important, because family is foundation of community. But without father, without mother, there is no family construct. It doesn't exist. So it's essential to the community. It's essential to the structure. It's essential to everything that exists. That thing called family, and a healthy family. It's not just a family. It's like saying food. If it's nasty food, you don't want that.
Yeah.
You don't want to just eat it because it's there. I'm hungry, so I got to eat that.
Yeah.
No, you want a healthy family. How do we get healthy?
Yes,
Right?
and I want to talk about some of that too going forward once we get these questions out. So tell me, Brother John, what is the presence of the Black father have the impact of relationships within the Black community?
Listen, the Black father can provide legendary stuff and legacy.
Yes.
So, if you know that the greatest impact on your family, especially your children, is in the first 7 years. And in that first 7 years, as my father would say scripturally, of course, Proverbs talks about train up a child in the way he or she should go when they get old. I mean, I'll be 60 in 5 months. They will not depart from it. And so it's important for a father. He's gonna affect his family. He's gonna be affected by his faith. He's gonna be affected by his fitness. He's gonna be affected by his finances. He's gonna be affected by everything that comes along with the community in his life. So he should be affecting all of those things. My father affected all of those things.
Yeah.
He was well known when he walked into a room. People that was drinking would put up their glass because they knew from how his presence and what he was going to share with you, because it was his appointed message to make sure that you were spiritually ready in your life. And that's what men should do. Because think about it. These young men that are walking around lost, they don't have no great example. And they look like it. And it's a big thing because the impact and what happened in their life makes them mimic what they saw.
Yeah.
And that's physical, that's emotional, that's mental, spiritual, and psychological.
Yeah.
If you hear bad language being spoken, my brother just said it. If you hear bad language being spoke to the mother in your home, guess what you're going to do? You're going to speak that language to the person that's in your life. It could be your sister, or it could be a girlfriend, fiance, or a wife. And the thing that is really powerful, my dad shared this. What you do as an example lasts 4 generations.
Wow.
So whatever decision you make, you're going to make that decision that affects your family 4 generations. How do I know that? Because many of us have seen where a great-great-grandfather was an alcoholic, and now the father and the son is an alcoholic. 4 generations. And the alcoholic father is showing his grandkids because he's constantly drinking in front of them. So it affects you 4 generations. And so one of the solid things that was ever said, whatever decision you make as reference to a man right now, you better make that decision based on what you see 4 generations from now.
Yes.
And because who you are and what you become, as my brother just said, people are always watching.
Yeah.
The first people that's always watching is the ones that's under your roof.
I love it. I love it. I love that, because I always say that we reap what we sow, and we may not ever see the sowing or the reaping of that sowing. We may see it in this generation, or we may see it, like you said, 4 generations in. So whatever those decisions are, we have to make sure. And as men, y'all covering that. So Brother James, answer that question for me. How does the presence of the Black father impact the relationships within the community, family as well as romantic?
Well, you know, I always like to go against the so-called grain of, you know, the stereotypes of what Black men don't do. And I think that on my show, I've held back a lot as far as my attitude towards this. This is one of the reasons why I have men like this in my life, because, you know, I have the Vaughns and the Garthions and the Johns in my life because they're not yes men. If I'm wrong, they tell me I'm wrong, you know? And so I'm just like Garthion. I have no issue with telling the world how much I love my wife, because I remember that night when I was lying on the bed, Brother Vaun, and I was just got back from the club. I was drunk, hanging out with my partners, and I was just tired, Sister Coach Michelamonè. I was just tired. I was just so sick and tired of the streets. I wanted to settle down. I wanted to have a family. I think I was like 26 years old, and I remember lying on that bed and just praying, like, Lord, if you send her, that I am done with the streets. And I remember the day that I met her. And so when I say that my wife was God sent, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I've heard a lot of guys say statements to me, and I didn't go for it. The CDC in 2018 put out a report about Black fathers being the most involved in any other race. And it's amazing how that really didn't hit mainstream.
Right.
You know, how Black fathers, even though that the mother and the father are not together, the father was still involved in the life of that mother as well as that child. And so the beauty of this is to show the world, because so many people, and Coach Michelamonè, I've been screaming this since, before my wife, about the relationship between Black men and Black women. I've been talking about this since I was back in my 20s. And so there are so many people who are being financed off the rift between Black men and Black women. They're getting paid. They're building YouTube pages off the divide between Black men and Black women. Well, I say to the world, I love my girls, I love my wife, and I would do anything in the world to keep them safe, you know? And so the beauty of we are just walking in our call. This is who we are as Black men. This is who we were created to be. We were not created to be thugs. We were not created to be killers. We were created to build communities. We was created to love our women, and we was created to rear up our children in the way that God has called us to do it. That's who we are. Everything else we became based on what the world showed us. Yeah. Okay, the stuff that we're seeing on TV. Some people watch too much television. They watch too much television and they think that's who we are. I heard, and I'm in a position where I can talk to different people all the time. I heard a woman of the Asian community said to me, she said that she thought at one time in her life that we were all like rappers. That's the image that she was showed. This woman said this to me, you know, and she said, but coming over to America, she realized that everything that she had been taught about Black men were not true. Yeah. And so I do it on purpose to go out, and regardless of whether you're Black, white, regardless of who you are, I stand as a Black man, as a proud Black man who loves his wife, who loves his girls, who loves his grandkids, and I will do whatever I got to do, not only to love them, but to keep them safe and do whatever, regardless of how it makes me look. Yes. And I think that is the beauty of fatherhood, standing and being committed at what you said in the beginning. What John said is so true. When you talk about being a man of your word, don't say it if you're not going to do it. Yeah. But if it comes out of your mouth, especially to my girls, I have to be that guy. You know, I have to show my daughters that this type of man does exist. You know, even if she doesn't see it in any other man, they see it in their father. And so every day I'm always studying, because I truly believe in when you fail to educate yourself, you allow others to make decisions for you. And I truly believe that. So I educate myself every day. I talk to different men about fatherhood, even though my girls are grown. Yeah. But I will always be daddy. I love that. I love that. And you're absolutely right, because many of the statistics point against Black fathers, even if saying that 70% of Black children grow up without fathers. And the thing is, I think that what they're doing is they're taking the single motherhood with the Black fathers not being present, and they're tapping them in together. And just because they're not in the same household doesn't mean that they're not present. And that's what we really need to pay more attention to, and how there's this divide that consistently is against our community. Brother Vaun, tell us, how does the presence of the Black father impact the relationship status of families as well as romantic relationships in our community?
Yeah, I mean, it's crucial. There's a proverb that says a child can have only one mother, but many fathers. And this speaks to what Brother Garthion was saying earlier, how even though you might not have biological children, you might be the baseball team coach or the basketball team coach, or some kind of way you're involved in the lives of the children in your community. And that's important. That's hugely impactful, because a lot of our young children don't have that guidance. They reach what we're calling adulthood without the cultural structure that ushers them into a healthy relationship. And so with us being present, if for nothing else, if for no other reason, that it helps them to it helps point them in the right direction for how to get along and how to harmonize and how to cooperate effectively with their feminine complement. Sometimes I say counterparts, but I try to catch myself, because they're not my counterpart. She's not my, many people say competition, but she is your complement. She is as necessary to your life as addition is to subtraction, as north is to south, right? As hot water is to cold water. There is no such thing as the institution of manhood unless there is also the complementary institution called womanhood. Yeah. Otherwise, we would all just be people. Yeah. There would be no need for the classification. So she is vitally necessary to what it is that we're building. So the presence of fatherhood, I mean, I say is hugely critical. And without it, there is a critical component missing for what that child needs to become a complete and healthy adult. So you have a lot of girls, even like you, a lot of times you hear people say things like, "Oh, she's got daddy issues." Well, if we're missing as many people, as many fathers from the homes as they say, then a lot of our men also have daddy issues, right? So we grow up thinking that we're supposed to just spread our seed anywhere. Just because the ground is fertile doesn't mean you're supposed to plant your seed in it. Sometimes that soil, even though fertile, is toxic, right? And then the return on your investment, right? You might get flowers, but they might be kind of bitter, right? So, and I think one other aspect about fatherhood that I think so many people overlook is that conception begins in the mind, right? So even before you produce the child physically, what that child is going to be is beginning to manifest here. And so that goes into your thoughts as you produce that child, and then as you're there while that child is being cultivated in the womb, right? That's the I'll go past that. And then I think now I'll stop there. I think I've said enough. Go ahead.
Good stuff. I love that. I love even how you mentioned about the whole family. You, Garthion, you all are talking about the whole family structure, and fatherhood does not necessarily stop at it being your biological father. And so what that does is, I want to talk about that, because there's this whole thing in mainstream coming out right now because of the different movements that are happening, and these gurus that are out here that are breaking up the Black family, talking about that children are a liability. And because those children come in with that woman that may be a single mother and things of that sort, because we have to understand that we are our brother's keepers, whether that we created those seeds or not. And if we get the idea that that's not true, then we break that up and we won't. So what do you all think about? This is the question I want to know. What do you all think about the construct that even though you did not, if a single father, a single mother, a man comes into a single mother's life and is now the father of that child, what are your thought process in how that should take place? Should there be some differences in that? Is there something that is just, I mean, like, I know that you all have, not had that instance, but what do you all think about that whole thing? Am I making sense?
Yeah, you're making a lot of sense, because that's what I came into. When I met my wife, we got married at 28 years old, and our oldest daughter my wife had a daughter from a previous marriage. And at the time, it didn't matter to me, even though I didn't know what I was doing as a father, I was getting that education. So if I choose to be with her, then by default, I choose to be with her daughter, and so that was not even an issue with me. And I remember, because at that time, my wife and I was working together, and we used to make jokes at each other. And she was one day she said she was getting off early, and I had to stay back. And she was like, "Well, you know, if you were getting off, I was gonna let you take me shopping." You know, she'd make little jokes like that, and I was like, "You know, if I'm gonna take you shopping, you staying the whole weekend." And she was like, "Well, you know, I got a daughter." I said, "Bring your daughter. We're not gonna be doing nothing that she can't see." So, and I meant that from the start. And that goes back to what John said. I had that individual in front of me that took care of me because I was not his, you know, so he became that father to me. So, you know, I think one of the things that I do my best to do, Coach Michelamonè, is I do not excuses. I am against any excuse that I make, even if those excuses are legit. If I say, well, I can't do this because, I'm going to find a way to do it. Because as you said, there are so many people out here that are profiting off our failures.
Yeah.
You know, they're coming in and trying, and the sad part about it is many of these people look just like us.
Yeah.
They are coming in and they are trying to divide the Black family, you know, just for profit. You know, and as the scripture says, you know, they have their rewards.
Yeah.
You know, but for me and my house, I'm gonna stand firm. And I feel as though if I choose to be with Maria and our oldest daughter's name Jessica, by default, Jessica is mine. So whatever was missing in Jessica's life, it is my job to fulfill that. And that is exactly what I did, you know. And so one of the first voices I heard this morning was her voice calling me to wish me a happy Father's Day.
Yeah.
And so that shows right there, as Brother John said, the impact that I made on her, even though I'm not her biological father, but still, that is no excuse. Any man that makes that statement and says something like that, that says that a child becomes a liability, that man is the devil. And I'm going to say this up front because that's just the kind of guy I am. That man is evil and that man is the devil. If he says something like that, we can't be with our Black women just because that Black woman has a child coming in. I don't care if it's 2 or 3 children. It doesn't matter. If you choose to be with that woman, and you choose to be with that child, no excuse.
Yeah, I love that. Brother Garthion, what's your thoughts on that?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
You know, it's a damn shame that we have to say biological in front of father.
Yeah.
It really is. When I hear my biological father, which really means that the one that shares your biology is not being as he should. You can't just say father. Father and biology are 2 different things. You can be a father and not be biologically attached to, but you can not be a father and be biologically attached to. But look at the language that we develop when we say my biological father, right? Of course, if a man is going to be responsible for a woman, he has to be responsible for her and everything that comes with her. It's real simple and short for me on this one. If you can't, leave her the hell alone.
Yeah.
If you're not ready for that, don't take the responsibility of her. Find you somebody who has no children, but if you're going to love her and take on her responsibility, then you have to take on the children. And what woman, now sisters, you don't need a man so damn bad where you'll take a man on that will say he loves you, but it has a problem with your child. These real sick cases where you want a piece of man so bad that you'll take the man and accept the man who won't accept your child.
Yeah.
What kind of craziness is that?
Yeah.
A sick mindset. We should never be that desperate, ever.
Yeah.
And a man should never, ever decide to take on the responsibility of one and not the other. And I'll do that right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Brother John, what are your thoughts on that?
Man, I got some awesome thoughts on that one because I'm privy to 2 things. I didn't have any sisters.
Yes.
So my father was a father to a lot of individuals. And as Brother Garthion was speaking, I was thinking, man, the greatest father of all didn't have any children. Ooh, let me say that again. The greatest father of all didn't have any children. He was the father to us all, but never had a physical child.
Yeah.
So that means for us, there are going to be times where we are positioned non-physically to be a natural father.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have an example, again, I didn't have any sisters. So this is why this is powerful, this question. I didn't have any sisters. So the greatest father figure, as far as my father showing me how to treat someone, was, of course, the example of him treating my mother. But then all of the individual young ladies that wanted to be a sister or a daughter, he had the opportunity to step in and be just that, because a lot of them were missing the fatherly figure. So that showed me as a young man, because this was before teenagehood, as far as, or being teenagers, where, because he was of course a pastor of a church, but he understood the ability, man, to be an intercessor. See, he was interceding for the individuals that didn't have fathers by being that example, like he was to us, to them.
Mm-hmm.
So there is always somebody that is going to need the fatherly image. I got adult men right now who didn't have fathers, who will call me and ask me for what? Fatherly advice.
Yes.
He will ask me for wisdom. He will ask me for some understanding, some knowledge, because he didn't have that. And he knew and knows that I had it. And I'm at the stage in life where I can share fatherly instructions.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the ability to make the greatest impact. Let me share this too. For me, I was blessed and fortunate enough to have this amazing woman come in my life, or being gifted to me and sent to me at a stage where I'm seasoned. But here's what comes with it: adult children, and sometimes grandchildren. And when you know that you can make an impact on a young man's life who is protective of his mother, because he's at the age where he's developed his family. He's at the age where he's not going to take nothing where you're going to come up and treat his mother incorrectly. No matter what, he could be street and he could be someone that got great upbringing. He's going to be protective of his mother if he understands love of his mother and those who are around him.
Right.
So when you're coming into a family that's already seasoned and have older children, and you're able to make an impact on those young men's lives and the women. I just got a call today from a young lady who is my wife's daughter. She called me today to say, thank you for taking on the task of stepping in as my father.
Wow.
This is the first time I've had a real father that I can actually send a card to, or I can call and say, listen, I have this challenge with this man and I want to get some understanding of how to handle it, or should I handle it? And I'm in the position in life with the wisdom to say, daughter, baby, listen, let me tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do in reference to this situation. She's an adult in her 30s.
Yeah.
And so it's important for men to understand the level of impact that you can have when you understand that you can step in and be an intercessor in ways that you have no idea.
Yeah.
That can work both ways. That can work good and that can work bad. Yeah. And so you're going to recognize who is stepping in on man, Brother Vaun, you notice my subject, who is stepping in on the land, working the farm.
That's good.
Because you don't want bad crops, right? But you want a good farmer in your life so that you can have seasonal. You can have seasonal success no matter what.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you so much for sharing. Brother Vaun, step in and answer that question.
I mean, man, is there anything left to be said? I don't think he left no meat on that bone. Yeah, I mean, I co-sign everything that they said. I think one of the things that a lot of us are concerned about is we're the lowest earning demographic in the country as Black men. And so our resources are a little bit more limited than, what other ethnic groups. And so one of the concerns is sharing those limited resources, or what we consider to be limited resources, with someone who A, doesn't appreciate it, and then B, someone who might just take advantage of it without reciprocity, right?
Okay.
So I think it's incumbent upon us to find someone or to be with someone who helps us alleviate that concern.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think it's not for the faint of heart. Coming in and being a stepfather, it's not for the faint of heart. And so if you're coming into the relationship with a woman who has children, one or multiple children, you have to be, in order for that to work, you have to be pretty developed in your journey toward manhood, on your path toward manhood. But ultimately, man, I don't know that there is a more honorable and noble thing in a healthy scenario for a man to willingly take on children that he didn't produce.
Yeah.
Now, again, that requires a level of reciprocity on the part of the woman to create or to help facilitate a healthy environment for this to take place.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If the child, there can't be no, you ain't my daddy, and don't you say that to my child. I mean, there's got to be some healthy things taking place. Right. But in the right scenario, I think it is a critical need right now. I keep using that word critical, but it's a critical need at this juncture in our development as a people, because I was listening to a white guy on a podcast earlier this morning, and he was describing his take on Black men. And he said that we are not physically, financially, or intellectually a threat in this country.
Wow.
He was so, this idea that, everybody's scared of the Black man, the Black man is dominant and whatever, woo, woo, woo. He said, we are the least threatening, physically, financially, emotionally, intellectually. We're not even a concern. And so this thing that we're calling race, right? Whatever groups you want to break it into, whatever you might want to call each individual group, it's called race for a reason. And we have to begin developing champions to run this race, because right now, many of us don't even have anybody to hand the baton to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good. My dad, I'm the oldest in a blended family of 7. And so my dad took on children that weren't his, and we don't do steps. We don't do, biological. We do, that's my dad, that's my mom, that's what we are. Sometimes to get the story across, because some people are like, I thought your mother was dead, then I have to say certain things like my stepmom so they can get it. But that's my mom, that's my dad. Those are people that I'm going to always believe that they're mine. And so when we have that, there's this thing that happens within the core of who that child is, even as an adult, that spurs out success, spurs out healthy, spurs out those types of things that we really need to have. So it's really important. I see the brother Garthion is moving around. I want to ask you real quick, because I don't know if we're going to lose you in a little bit. How we doing on time with you? Okay, good. So one of the things I wanted to go into some of these things, real quick, let me ask you this. Do you think that today's fathers have it harder than they had it when you all were younger?
Do I think they have it harder? I don't necessarily think it's harder. Because at the core of being a father, it's still what everyone has said. And that transcends time. It transcends technology. It transcends that. Because, my father could have been to me what I am to my children, as my uncle was at that time to his children. Right? So I don't think it's a time thing. I think it's a mindset. See?
Yeah.
Because when I was in high school, that was the era of the song "Babies Having Babies."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you all remember that, but
I remember.
And so I don't necessarily think so. my answer short. I really don't. I really think it's really a mindset, and it's how you are taught, what you learn, and who you learn it from.
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily different based on time. I know.
Yeah. Good stuff. I love it. Brother Vaun, you think that they have it harder now or back then?
You know, it's fluid, you know, and things have changed so much, and every scenario is different, but we have access to information now that we didn't have then. We have, in a sense, we don't have the types of opposition today that my father and my grandfather had. Like, there's no real threat in my mind that I'm going to be lynched or that I could be lynched on any, like, of course we have our challenges with the police, right? But I feel fairly confident that I'm going to go to work and come home unharmed. So they're different challenges for different eras, but I don't know. I kind of like to think that maybe today, with the access that we have, but again, you know, today has its own set of challenges too, because there's always dissension being sown in between our men and our women, whereas back then we knew that we were all we had.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I don't even know how to definitively say that one is easier than the other. Men are more expressive today, and we're more willing to talk about what's bothering us with other men. And so that's an aid that we didn't have that my grandfather probably never would have talked about. Again, I don't know that I can give a definitive answer on that as much as I can maybe point out some of the differences.
Let's talk about this, because this is a good one. I want to imagine what our communities could look like if we promoted fatherhood, like sneakers, cars, entertainment, violence, what have you, are promoted. What if we promoted the everyday ways that fathers matter? What would be the impact? What are your thoughts on that, John?
Is that my sister Andrea? Yeah, that's like Andrea. It's let me say this. There is nothing new under the sun.
Yep.
The greatest man and the greatest, wisest man said there's nothing new under the sun. Think about this. Think about your question. The question is it harder now than it was then? Think about my statement. If it's hard now, it's because of what was done then. Right? Mm-hmm. So that means how my father affected me, how his father affected him, and how I affect my son and his grandson, or his son when it comes along. If you affect your family in the right way, that question don't even come into play.
Right.
Because it won't be hard. It ain't hard for my son. He got the same challenges as far as life, but he saw me go get my education, get a master's degree. What did he do? And I did it to challenge him. What did he do? He went and got his master. I'm a businessman, and the businesses that I'm in, what did my son do? He saw what I was doing as far as business. What did he do? He got in the same business. He created it in his own way.
Yeah.
It wasn't hard for him. You know why it wasn't hard? Because his father did it. And his father understood the tracks. He understood the path that it took to get there, just like these fathers on here. They can talk on both sides. They can say, baby, don't go down that path, because if you do, based on what I have gone through, this is what will happen. Now, if you make the choice to go down the path, it's going to be hard on the other end. But if you listen to the wisdom that you get based on what happened before, you're not having that question asked. So for the individuals that are saying it's harder now because you didn't listen or you didn't have a good example. Because if you did, you would be on this show having a great conversation with us.
Right.
you would have people following The Alchemist. You would have people following Judas Den. You would have people following Becoming Better. You would have people following Spiritual Message Moments. Because of the decisions that we made back then, we're in the position now. It ain't hard to share with people. It's easy because we have wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. We have the insight and the experience that will make it easy for young people and the people that listen to this show today. They're getting wisdom and knowledge so that down the road, it won't be a hard situation when you listen.
Yeah.
Because majority of the people, the guys that's in jail, Why? Because they didn't listen.
Yeah.
They didn't have wisdom. The women in the lives who had certain situations in their life happen, they might have saw the red flags. They didn't listen.
Yeah.
You know, so there are certain things in our life. If we say it's hard now, it's because you didn't listen in the beginning. Period.
Yeah.
And so, no, I don't believe that it's harder now than it was then, because guarantee you, like my brother just said, Brother Bond said, we didn't have technology, man.
Yeah.
And I was born in the 60s. We didn't have no computers. Matter of fact, we didn't have no cell phones, right? So how did we have great communication in our neighborhood? Because we knew how to talk to each other. We knew how to be responsible for the next door neighbor's kids. And those next door neighbor parents impacted our lives to where we could actually be here and talk about it.
Absolutely.
So no, it ain't harder now than it was then, because you got more now, and you got more guilty parents now than you did then. Because the parents I want to make sure my child didn't. No, you got some guilty parents that's causing some challenges. Our parents weren't guilty. They did the best with what they had.
Yep. Come on. I love that. I love that. Brother James, what's your thoughts on that? Do you think it's harder? And then even talk about we can go back to Andrea's statement.
Yeah, I mean, Les Brown said, if it's hard, then do it hard. And I never forget that statement that he made. Going back to what Sister Andrea said, she's absolutely right. This goes back to another quote another thing that Sister Andrea said a while back on when I had her and Garthion on. She said, "Why abandon ship when you have the tools to fix the hole?"
Come on.
And I totally agree with that.
Yes.
I coach football. I coach 10 to 12-year-old boys. One of the things that I did was I made sure that I talked to the parents before the season started. There was a situation where one of the coaches was upset because he felt like he wasn't being heard. So he got upset, and I noticed he wasn't participating. And I walked down to him and I asked him, I said, "What is the problem?" He said, "Every time I talk, one of the coaches overtalked me. It's like my ideas are not getting out there." He said, "I'm done." I was like, "What do you mean you're done?" He said, "I'm done." He said, "Next week, I'll be on the other side of the fence." And so I asked him, I said, "Okay, before you do that, tell me a little bit about Xavier." I pointed at one of the young kids, 11 years old. I said, "Tell me a little bit about him." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Just tell me something about him before you leave." He said, "He's a good kid." I said, "He doesn't trust men." And he was like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Because he said that every time he trusts a man, he leaves." And he asked me, he said, "How did you know that?" I said, "I had a conversation with his mother. His father left, boyfriend left, uncles left, brother left. Every time he trusts a man, he leaves." And so what I did was, going back to what Sister Andrea was saying, what I did was I showed that in front of him that I actually cared. I pulled up a quote by Esther Roll, and it's hardly ever discussed. Esther Roll said, and for those of you who don't know who Esther Roll is from Good Times, she said, "I told the producers I couldn't compound the lie that Black fathers don't care about their children. I was proud of the family life, and I was able to introduce that to television." This is one of the reasons why we still know who James Evans is, because it took that Black woman to say, "I would not do this show unless there's a Black father present." This is how powerful this is, okay? And so, I don't necessarily think that it's harder, but I think that it may be different. As Brother John just said, we have other things that we can work with. Because I chose to go and talk to those parents about their sons, I was able to get some insight on what was going on, because all of them was not cut out to play football. I noticed that many of them was brought out there just so they can get their heads out the street and back onto their work. So I understood that. So I asked questions. And I think that is so important. Once we can get away from the stereotype of what the importance of Black fathers, even what that white guy said this morning about Black men are not a threat. We will see one day just how much of a threat that Black men are. But what I would say to Black men, continue doing what you're doing, okay? If you need to step it up, step it up. But do not make the excuse about why we can't do something. It was harder back then than it is today. Maybe you have a point. Maybe there are things that we don't have to dodge that we had to dodge back then. But the fact of the matter is, as Les Brown say, if it's hard, then do it hard. Every successful endeavor requires a certain level of sacrifice. If you're not, and I think it was Peter Drucker who said, if you're not willing to risk, you can't grow. And if you can't grow, you can't become your best. And if you can't become your best, you can't be happy. And if you can't be happy, then what else is there? What better happiness is for a man to be a father in his home to make sure that his children and his wife is taken care of? That's the most, that should be the number one priority on every man's list, to make sure that he's taking care of home first, regardless of regardless of what name they try to give it. And I go back to this whole red pill, blue pill stuff, this whole alpha, and just even with that, I was watching a show the other night, and it was this lady. It was a black couple. Now now maybe you can explain this to me, Brother Vaun. It was this black couple. They was in an open marriage. Okay. Now the woman met another guy. Okay. Now she told him what type of relationship she's in, but he ended up falling in love with her anyway. And she made the statement. She said, how in the world did I end up with two alphas? Now, if you go on the internet, they will say that the guy who fell in love with her, even though he knew, was a simp. So I believe that many of these brothers out here who are saying this stuff don't have a clue of what they're talking about. And they're confusing so many men out here who don't know how to approach women.
Yeah.
And so now they're living their life vicariously through someone else, trying to make a point, and they're sounding foolish every time, because the only time their points matter is in the comment section of somebody else's YouTube video.
Yep, you're absolutely right. I love that. That's real good. That's real good. And so it takes me into my next question. It talks about the increasing number of single parent homes, with it being single parent with mostly Black women, is exclusively a Black problem. This is one of the myths that have been shared across media all over. I've run into this question or something of this statement while I was researching for this show. What are your thoughts about that, Brother Vaun, with saying that the increasing number of single parent home is exclusively a Black problem?
It's a lie. It may be disproportionately affecting us, but it's an American problem more than anything. And as a matter of fact, it's not even just an American problem. It's really starting to become more pervasive around the globe.
Yeah,
you can see this in South America. You can go west to Africa, and even through Europe. Now, again, it may be disproportionately affecting us because much of it is an issue born out of finances and also manipulation. Like, there are many factors that go into this, and the way it's spun is if it's somehow we are organically dysfunctional.
Yeah.
Right. Like as if our dysfunction is happening in a vacuum without all of these external influences. Right. I mean, hip hop is toxic. It's poison. That there's nothing. There are no redeemable qualities in mainstream hip hop. Now, you have some underground artists who are doing some good things, but primarily what we're hearing on the radio, like there was a such thing as nighttime radio and nighttime TV, things that they wouldn't play during the day. But now you have 6, 8, and 10-year-old children listening to what really should be considered X-rated radio, and this is shaping them and forming them, and they're growing up listening to this, and so these are contributing to the problem. So again, I think it's more than just a Black problem. It's a global problem, but I think disproportionately in America, and even more disproportionately with us. But it's not just a Black problem.
What are your thoughts on that, Brother Garthion? I don't know. Did you hear the question?
I heard part of it. Could you repeat it for me?
The increasing number of single parent homes is exclusively a Black problem.
But no, it's not.
Yeah.
Remember, it's always about the optics with our community.
Yeah.
See, that's like the terminology Black on Black crime. And white on white crime exists. About 50 to 52% of the people kill where they live. But the optics say, let's post Black on Black crime. The optics say, let's make it look as if Black men don't take care of their children. Let's make it look let's make it look as if black men they don't want to be in the home.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case. I bet you if we check it statistically, we're going to find a different number. I believe somebody gave a statistic earlier in the show, right? About what that real number actually is. It's about the optics. It's about making the black man look as weak as possible. And unfortunately, we give ammunition where we should not.
Yeah.
And we don't do enough of this where we say, hey, there are black men.
Yeah.
I went to Costa Rica here recently, and it was 4 families. Myself, my wife, and 3 other couples, all black, all business people, all married, all have children, right? Some of them were in the situation where they took care of other children, and others of them, when I say other children, I mean children that they
didn't birth,
raised or was not by them, right?
Mm-hmm.
The father, that is. I hope I'm making that point. But it's about how it looks. The opposites make it look a certain kind of way, and you will begin to produce in their community fatherless homes.
Yeah,
that goes to it. Hope that answers the question.
Yes. Brother John, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's definitely not true. I think I often have an opportunity, of course, during the show to talk to listen to Brother James's stories about going in and out of different homes. I used to have when I lived in Detroit, I had a cable company that allowed me to go into multiple homes to do installations. And a lot of those homes were of a different persuasion. And a lot of those homes didn't have the man, because there are some cultures that will just legitimately walk away and don't even say that, don't even have no excuse. I'm just leaving. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we of course are not privy to that information, and it makes us look like we the ones. I'm gonna tell you this. I was afraid to not be in my son's life. Let me say that again. I was afraid not to be in my son's life, because we already have the stigma that we're not like that. It wasn't a point of not being or wanting to be in his life. It was a point of having that image of not being in his life. So, I look at a lot of scenarios. You have some young brothers who may not have it together, but the one thing they fight for, we are the greatest fighters of trying to be in our kids' families or kids' lives. There ain't now, if you want to say, is there any other culture that fights hard to be in their families as far as their kids' lives? I would say that's probably a true statement when it comes to us. Yeah. We have the greatest, we fight the most to try to be there. And of course we come up against some certain things, because it's based on the relationship that the man and the woman may have had, and it may not have been a good one. And it could affect the fact of being in that child's life. Yeah. But it's not a point of us not really wanting to be in there. And so, no, I would say, of course, Brother Garthion, I believe is very on point. The greatest image is the one of the higher level of individuals who have the greatest target. See, you could say that we may not be a threat, but you wouldn't say that unless we were.
Yeah.
And so you want to make the threat look as bad as possible.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it, because in everything that we have been a part of as men of color, we have taken it to another level.
Yeah.
And you can look at that. If you could just use sports, and it ain't about being a sport. Because here's another thing. When American Express was having the greatest problem as far as their business, they didn't go get a white man. They went and got a brother to lead that organization back to where it was supposed to be. So if that's not telling you we don't have some stuff together and we can do it at every level, American Express ain't been the same since that man stood in. And it's a few other great organizations who went and got a brother to lead their organization and bring it back to life. So, and that's from the business side, because we are savvy brothers, because we can do it hood and we can do it in another way as well. Yeah. We can elevate intellectually and make things look so different. So no, I don't believe that. I will never believe that, because that ain't how we roll.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on that, Brother James?
I think that we should start challenging these statistics.
Yes.
Don't just take them face value. And because it states that in this year, more Black women was this and less Black women was that, don't just take that at face value. we have to start challenging these statistics and not just believing it, because you got to understand who's putting out these statistics. Okay, so you have to research the person who's putting out the stuff. You know, and so I'm not afraid to go back, because as John said, I have the opportunity to go in these people's homes all across Atlanta, and I hear the stories even from white kids about how daddy is not there. Okay, and so we just can't go by what someone says and take that at face value, because we don't see ourselves in that light. Dr. Carter G. Woodson said, if you can control the way a man thinks, you do not have to concern yourself with what he would do. And so that is a true and that is a powerful statement. If I can tell you that you are no good, that you are no good father, and this is all black men do, and if you don't challenge that, you're going to grow up in every little piece of statistic that backs that up. You're going to take that at face value, and you won't challenge it. We have to learn how to start challenging stuff and stop just listening just because the statistics say so. When they say that 30.2 million people are going through this right here, that is not just black people. That is white people, that are Asian people. I have talked to these people. When a white woman, Brother Vaun, when a white woman can come outside and say to me, could you please tell me why my husband doesn't listen to me? Okay, that is a problem. This is what's you're not gonna see this on the news. You're not gonna see this plastered all over the place, but it is profitable. The scripture says that they will use us as spoils. This is what the scripture says, okay? This is not me trying to get someone saved. This is what is being written. They will use us as spoils. So that is exactly what they're doing to everything that goes on in the black family. People are using it to profit off of it. Regardless of how small, they're making these small things look big. And until we decide to go and challenge these statistics, we have just sitting on this show right now some of the most intellectual people that this earth has ever seen. But we have to believe in that. You understand me? And we have to believe that Coach Michelamonè is one of the greatest coaches that this earth has ever seen. And that is how we have to get behind her and push her. Brother Vaun, one of the greatest coaches. Brother John, we have to get behind them and push them. I said this the other day when they was trying to give this certain individual all the credit for speaking, being a mouthpiece for black people, for black men, when I saw at the same time this particular person was tearing down black women at the same time, and I saw through the madness, and I said, this person, and I have to say this person pales in comparison. And the young lady asked a question, name one black talk show host. I said, no, let's not say black talk show host. Let's say black man who has been consistently speaking up for black men for years, and it had to be the Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I had to speak out on that, because that credit was being given to somebody who are tearing black women down every time he comes on the air. And God is going to deal with them.
He is
going to deal with them. And I truly believe, I don't wish anything bad on anybody, but please, 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 brothers and sisters, please challenge these statistics. Don't just believe that black women are at the bottom of the totem pole. That is not. If we start, as Sister Andrea said earlier, if we start advertising, lifting our women up as we supposed to do, lifting our black fathers up as we supposed to do, we can defeat this and not just listen just because somebody put a statistic out there.
Absolutely. And so in the beginning, I talked about, were you going to say something, Vaun?
Yeah, as he was saying these things about statistics, man, it just tripped me out, because look, one thing about numbers, like, figures don't lie, but liars figure.
Yes.
Okay. Figures don't lie, but liars figure.
Yep.
There was a study that they were doing on welfare in Portland, Oregon. Y'all familiar with this? Now they wanted to do a special to show how many people were on welfare in Portland, Oregon. This is from like the 90s, maybe even the 80s. And so the news reporter went to the welfare line, so that they can collect this data, put the news out. But they were perplexed because all that was in line was white people.
Yeah. Yes.
Line full of white people. Now, this destroys the narrative that black people are sucking the system dry.
Yes.
That wasn't good enough, though. What that reporter did was sent for video from a neighboring city. I think they went to Seattle, Washington, where there were more Black people. And so they got the video from that city and then played it in their own city to pretend like, look at the problem we're having right here in Portland, Oregon. See? So I'm saying that to say, they put these numbers out here, man, but these numbers, they are not putting them out there in fairness. They're not putting them out there so that they benefit you. They're putting these numbers out here to spin the narrative that fits what the agenda is that they want to push. It was Lyndon B. Johnson that said, I always mess this quote up, but it was something to the effect that if you give the white man, if you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best Black man, you don't have to pick his pockets. He'll empty them for you. Yeah. Right. And it's something else that goes with that. But the point is, they push this narrative so that they can create this narrative that we are the permanent underclass. Yeah. So that everybody can be stacked on that, and they build accordingly. But numbers don't lie, but figures don't lie, but liars figure.
And that's the thing. And that's so in the beginning, we talked about these different statistics with the 70% and things of that sort. But it talks about in this study, Fatherhood in Contemporary Black America, an Invisible Presence by Michael E. Connor and Joseph White. And it talks about the demographic trends outlined above, which is at 70% above, tend to conceal the variety of ways Black men participate in the fathering experience, although they may not be legally part of the nuclear family. There seems to be a major discrepancy between the negative absent father images of Black men described in demographic studies and the picture of Black men in fathering roles, which emerges from structured interviews, narratives, biographical sketches, community-based observations, and ethnographic investigations. These more qualitative approaches of ordinary Black men who are not often celebrated and whose voices are seldom heard indicate that Black men have always risen to assume the special places in the lives of children's families in the Black community. And I read that because this is the thing that we have to keep in mind. A lot of these statistics are taking place, and many of our Black men are not even included in those statistics. One, because they maybe decided not to do the U.S. Census. There's a lot of people that don't do the census because why? They feel like they're being used. Those numbers are being used against them. And so then like you said, Brother Vaun is saying that these numbers are used against us for a purpose. They're not just gathering numbers and telling us these numbers to make us feel good. They're doing this so that we can feel like we're pressured to complete this negative narrative that we've not created. And until we get to the places all of these men are talking about, to where we're deciding to do something about it and ignore these numbers or make better presences of our Black fathers and stuff, we'll have a better outline of that. And I really wanted you led into the next question that I had about the whole welfare. We had the story last week, our show last week about do we believe that Black women chose welfare over the Black man? Brothers, I need y'all to talk about that. Brother Garthion, do you believe that the Black woman chose welfare over the Black man?
I believe in some cases they were forced. I believe in other cases it was conditioned. I believe some may have even figured out that this is a way to circumvent the system. Some men are actually in the home. And I know that to be a fact. They're actually in the home, but they have to set it up where it doesn't look like it so that they can see those benefits. And it's sad all the way around because we have to do a better job of taking our roles and responsibilities like we should. That way our women won't even have to be placed in a position to have to make the decision. See, if we were doing what we were supposed to do, we take that situation out of the equation. Now, some may not agree with me on placing the responsibility back in our laps. That's what I'm going to do. See, if we do what we're supposed to do in the maintenance of the Black woman and women in general, really, then she's not placed in a position where she can i.e. circumvent or try to figure out a way or do any of those things. Hell, she don't have to make a choice. if we're on it like we're supposed to be on it. Now, there is a mindset that does that because she has been conditioned as such, because the backbone has been taken out of the home. So now the condition and the trust isn't where it should be. If the trust is not a concern. And because I'm driving, I don't want to go longer than that.
Okay. Brother James, talk about that.
I think that to come to a conclusion that that is what she did without actually talking to her is kind of jumping the gun. Right. Because we know that Black women are very savvy. We know that Black women are very protective. So there are Black women who actually did what they had to do at the time. Now, we know the rules that came along with that. But at the same time, she's sitting there, she's looking at her children, knowing she has to make a decision. Yeah. So to say that Black women actually did that, chose welfare over the black man, I have to say again, I'm the kind of guy, I have to go against the grain. I'm not against being wrong. I'm not against being corrected. But at the same time, I've talked to these women, and many of them had to make that decision in order for their children to eat. Let us be upfront and straight, okay? There are some Black men who are lazy. There are some Black men who do procrastinate and not do what they're supposed to do. There was a time in my life where I procrastinated, and I wouldn't have, no woman out there should trust anything about me. That was a period in my life, until I got around the right people, until I got back to the teachings that was given to me, okay? And so I believe that some women, I'm not going to necessarily say that this is what they do. I think that many Black women do what they have to do in order to make sure that the household is taken care of. Because let's be honest, the way Black men are hunted down, the way Black men are being treated in this country, if the Black woman doesn't stand up, there will not be a Black family. There will not be a community, because Black women, go back and look in history of strong Black women who had to do what they had to do when we were being lynched. Okay, so I know we can go back and forth with this thing all day long, but I am a champion for my community. So I'm going to speak up for my Black women and my Black men, even if I'm wrong. Yeah. I'm not against being corrected. Okay, but at the same time, I remember we have to learn how to fight back against these narratives. We got to learn how to fight back against these stereotypes. It was Frederick Douglass said, power concedes to nothing without a demand. But in that same, I remember when the minister Louis Farrakhan quoted that, he came back and said, but power won't even concede to a demand if the demand is coming from a weak constituency that looks like it's lost its testicular fortitude. Wow. So you don't have that testicular fortitude to speak out against this stuff and actually do your homework. I always say this. Whatever box that was attached to you, as long as you continue to believe it, it will always be attached to you. I love it. So I believe that many Black women do what they have to do, because as Brother Garthion said earlier, there are Black men that the woman is on welfare, but there are Black men who are actually living there. Yeah. Okay. But at the same time, I believe that the Black woman does what she has to do in order to survive. Now, do we have some trifling women out there? Every race does. Do we have any trifling men out there? Every race does. I'm not getting away from that. But at the same time, I'm not going to say that Black women actually chooses welfare over Black men. I'm just not going to agree to that.
What's your thoughts, John?
Brother James, Brother Garthion, boy, Brother Vaun. So this coach is laying it on us, boy, with these questions. So the greatest word in that line is choose. Now, here's the thing. Women are the most powerful influencers. They don't persuade. Men persuade, women influence. And Adam was a victim of influence. So when the woman has exhausted her influence on an individual, she might have to go to another powerful situation to show that she still will be able to do what she needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't consider welfare the word itself. I consider it, she decided to use her influence to get help.
Yeah.
Because the person that was with her didn't have the power to help her.
Mm.
So when you think about, I can't speak for no other women because I've only dated Black women. I'm married because I love them to life. When you sit down and talk to a Black woman.
Can we pause for a second? Let's welcome Garthion off the air real quick.
Okay.
Garthion, we thank you so very much for joining us today and taking out your time in your travels. You have given us a lot of good insight, and we really appreciate your wisdom.
No problem. Listen, thank you all, and I appreciate it so much. Just listening has been the best part of this. So thank you, and God bless you all.
All right, Garthion, we love you, bro.
We can't hear you, Vaun. Can't hear you, Vaun.
Hey, before you go, Brother Garthion, did you want to tell the people how they can find you, how they can follow you?
Yes, and you're gonna see a lot more of Andrea and I Becoming Better Real Talk Relationship series, and that's you can see we're on we're building our YouTube page finally, right? But definitely Instagram, Becoming Better TV, at Becoming Better TV, and of course Garthion Becoming Better on Facebook. Real Talk Relationship series. Definitely appreciate you all. Thank you. God bless. Have a great finish to the show.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate
Happy
you.
Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you. Thank you so much. All right. So go ahead, Brother John. Finish your statement.
So when you have a heart-to-heart conversation with a Black woman, there's a couple of things that you must listen for. See, when a Black woman says, I'm tired or I'm fed up, she gonna find a way to get through whatever she needs to get through, even if it is going to federal help. And that is one thing, because in most cases, if they have to depend on another type of resource, it's because the resource that they thought they were going to get didn't come and stay committed to what it was supposed to be. So they don't choose, in most cases, finances over a stable relationship, because they go into the relationship thinking, I'm gonna be with this dude. This dude, he fit, I think he fits me. I think we this. They ain't thinking about welfare.
Right.
That ain't even a conversation. I've never been in a conversation with an intellectual Black woman. If I think I like her, or it's vice versa, we got, she ain't never said, you know what, if I get to a point, I'm gonna choose welfare over you. It don't never happen.
Right.
So it only comes into play at a certain level of relationships, especially when you don't have that knowledge of how to, let me put this right, the knowledge on how to exceed that situation. Because see, we are talking about, in most cases, young women that didn't have a male influence in their life, a fatherly figure that can teach you, listen, let me show you first how to choose or how to look for certain things that will help you get through a particular situation when it comes to dealing with men.
Yeah.
Because see, if I had a daughter, I'm gonna teach you the streets. I'm gonna teach you the language on what it means. And me and Brother James talk about this. I'm gonna show you prior to, because I listen, I came up as I'm a preacher's kid, but I came up in the streets because our neighborhood was like that. So I know both sides. And I was telling the guys the other day, when you talk spiritual to the people in your life, it's sexy. So you should have a way to explain and express a situation to the daughter in your life or the female in your life and say, listen, here are some things you need to look for before you make a decision to deal with this particular individual. I don't care if the brothers can listen. I don't care, because if you don't have your stuff together, I'm gonna make sure that the women in my life, especially my daughters, they gonna know. Look for these red flags for this brother. Right. And if he got any of these red flags based on what I know and the wisdom and the mistakes I've made, leave this alone, so you don't have to make the choice of whether or not you have to take care of yourself with going a different way. Because I'm gonna teach you how to be educated. I'm gonna teach you what you need in case you don't get full education, how to get a job. Because if you have to work, I would rather you work than depend, because I'm gonna help you get independent. So when you do deal with a knucklehead and he don't have his stuff together, you already in place by what I taught you to not have to make that choice. And that's where we will be. Because again, intellectually, I've never had that conversation with an intelligent woman, even at whatever level she is. She's never wanted to make the choice of going to welfare. Absolutely. She may have been in position to do so, but she ain't never had that choice going into no relationship saying, oh, you know what? That ain't gonna happen. Yeah. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Brother Vaun, before you answer that question, please, you all think of 3 pieces. So for you all that's watching, don't go anywhere yet. Make sure that you stay around for these 3 pieces of wisdom as fathers that these gentlemen would like to give out to us. So you all be thinking of that. Brother Vaun, what are your thoughts? I know we had this about the show, but for those who didn't watch our show the week before about this, what are your thoughts about that whole thing? Because this has to do with the fatherhood. This has to do with that man being taken out so that he's not in position to be what these statistics are saying in the single family. What are your thoughts on that? And you're muted.
You hit the nail on the head when you just said that in many regards, we were taken out, removed systemically. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I think one of the things that gets lost is that we are living in the aftermath of a shared traumatic experience, that we didn't experience anything traumatic in this country that our woman didn't also experience. This has been a war. Yeah. Right. And so if you think in terms of in the context of war, then you have to arrive at a place where another man can even make such an offer to your woman. Right. Like, there's nobody that can come to my house and offer my wife that type of deal, welfare or stay here with me. Like, there has to be a threat to what we already have before that type of minuscule offer is even appealing. Right. Because keep in mind, it was a minuscule welfare. Come on, man. You're talking about dismantling my family for $30. Right. And then what I like about it is, so many brothers, they argue with me about this point. No, the women chose. I listened to a clip. There was a conversation between James Baldwin and Nikki Giovanni. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that conversation. But James Baldwin admitted that even then, that many of the men were leaving so that the wife and the child could eat. Wow. Right. Now, we don't want to talk about that part, but there were a lot of men who were cognizant of the fact that we were losing the war that we were in. And so in order for the family to at least eat, I can get out here and get it on my own. I can fall in a dumpster or whatever I have to do, but at least my wife and child are going to eat. And I might sneak in through the back door every now and then, but right. So we've said all of these,
and that's the sacrifices that we don't discuss about what our Black men are doing, because we think that it's automatically, oh, he's not there, then he doesn't care, and we don't know the individual circumstances as to why, you know what I'm saying? So we have to really take those into account. I love it how Brother James says, stop looking at these statistics and following through with them like they're law. Instead, do some research and stop just taking what has been placed in front of you, especially now, because you say something in 10 minutes or less, you're going to look at your phone and what you talked about is going to be on your phone. So we have to understand that stuff is being placed in front of us on purpose for a reason, to get us to believe it, and we're falling prey to it. Brother James, please take us out and tell us 3 pieces of wisdom that you as a father would give for our community, for your children, for other fathers that are young and they're about to have babies. Give us 3 pieces of wisdom.
The 3 pieces of wisdom that I would give is don't believe the narrative. Don't believe the negative things that's being said about Black fatherhood out here. Yes, we go through what we go through, but that's no different than any other man. Okay, that's no different than any other race. If you continue to absorb that nonsense, if you continue to absorb all that negativity, you're going to end up walking in it. You're going to believe that every time it's going to be like I used to be when I was a young man. Every time that I would go up against a challenge, I would always confuse that challenge with God saying no, not looking at the fact that the challenge only makes me stronger. So I think that we must change our perspective when it comes to being a father, whether it's your child or not. I took on a responsibility to not only be a coach, to those 10 to 12-year-old boys. But in many cases, I had to be a coach, I had to be a father, I had to be a friend, I had to listen to the different things that were saying. There was a coach out there that used profanity a lot. And 2 kids pulled me aside and say, Coach, I have to hear this every day when I'm at home. I really don't want to hear this when I come out here. And so I had to set up a rule. And it was challenging, Brother Vaun, because that was my first year being head coach with other coaches that have already been out there, that had laid that foundation. And now here come these young boys asking me, can I come and change that? And so I think that the first thing is change your perspective. Change your perspective of who you are. Know who you are. Know you are a man of God, regardless of where you are in life. You're not too far where God can't reach you. Yeah. Okay, so know that there is value about yourself. Yeah. And number 2, commit to it. Yeah. Commit to whatever you said you're going to commit to. Be committed to it. I think it was Les Brown that said, the next time you have bacon and eggs, the chicken was involved, the pig was committed.
Yeah.
All of it. And so you have to be commit to what you do. Commit to what you said you were going to do long after the feeling of what you said it in is gone. Commitment is so important. Remember, it's not about you. This is much bigger than you. I always tell people about having your why. What is your why? When you wake up in the morning, what is your why? I always believe in every morning your eyes open and your feet hit the floor. That's opportunity. Yeah. Okay. And you have to be committed to it, because if not, it is so easy to knock us off course based on everything that's being said out here. And last but not least, have faith. Yeah. Have faith, because sometimes you won't see it. That's why the scripture says we walk by faith and not by sight. Sometimes what we see can blind us, and it can throw off our perspective. And it goes back to what we said earlier about these statistics. Yeah. 75% of Black fathers are not in the home. That is not true. That does not mean that they are not involved with their women, and they're not involved. As you said earlier, many fathers decided to leave because of the threat that was being made in order for their people, for their families to eat. So yeah. I would say, hey, number 1, change your perspective about who you are. Yeah. Number 2, commit to what you say that you're going to do long after the feeling of what you said it in is gone. And number 3, walk by faith. Have faith that God is going to move on your behalf. Because let's be honest, you got to ask yourself the question, what are you trying to do in life? You got to ask yourself, because we got to understand there's something else that we have to that we have to mess with too, even in the Black community. That's called classism. Now, yeah, we have to fight our own. I saw a photo the other day. It showed it was a cartoon of a Black man written. It had the drawing of a Black man, and it had a gun from a cop. It had a gun from a Black woman. It had it was something else, but it had everything in there but a gun from another Black man. So these are all the things out here that we are fighting, but that's why they call it a fight. Frederick Douglass said, power concedes to nothing without a demand. Never have, and it never will.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much for that. Brother John, give us 3 pieces of wisdom to leave with.
So, I love spiritual vitamins. And so, I just want to share my vitamin Ds. The first thing is you got to decide in your life to follow what you are purposed to do. So you got to decide to follow God. You got to decide to be a great man in your family. Great to the community. Whatever environment that you're in, the decision that you make will either last a moment or it will last a lifetime. Mm-hmm. Because we can make a decision in a moment and it changes our lifetime. Yeah. So you have to decide to do to go down the right path in your life and do the right things for your life. Second, I like the word that Brother James just said, commit. So I'm gonna say dedicate. So whatever it is in that vitamin, for that second vitamin D, dedicate yourself to the things that you believe are good for your life. Dedicate yourself to your vision. If you got one, if you don't, you need one. Dedicate yourself to your dreams. If you don't have no dreams, you need to get some dreams. Dedicate yourself to your passion and your purpose. You definitely, if there's anything you should have, is a purpose in life. And you need to, once you find it, you need to dedicate yourself to it, and dedicate yourself to your family if you got a family. And dedicate yourself, of course, to God and yourself. Because if you don't dedicate yourself to yourself, you ain't gonna help nobody else. because you're not going to have the things necessary, the tools and the characteristics and all the things that go along with it to help any individual. And then thirdly, that my third vitamin, because I got 5 of them, but I'm gonna give you 3. The third vitamin is to deliver. See, if you can't deliver on the things that you say you're going to do, if you can't deliver and being committed to the things that Brother James talked about, if you can't deliver when Brother Vaun talks about what type of relationship and love that you have for you and your family and those that are involved, you're gonna have some challenges. You're gonna have some problems because people are looking for us to deliver on what we say we're going to do, where we're going in life. They're watching to see if you're going to go from point A to point Z or how you do it, because it's going to be some bumpy roads in between there. But they're going to see if you get hit upside the head and you're on your back, are you going to deliver by getting up? Because I'm watching to see how you handle adversity. Because the adversity is based on how you handle what happens to you. Then you can see whether or not you can deliver on what you're supposed to do. Right. So when we look at our lives, you got to decide where do you go, man. You got to decide on who you are as your name, because your good name is rather to be chosen than great riches. So you got to decide what it is in your life you're going to do. You got to dedicate yourself to it, and you got to deliver. Because if you look at the greatest example, which is the Lord, he did all 3 of them things. Yeah. He had to make a decision to be. He decided to make an impact on the world and come in a physical body. So that we can actually be able to identify as an example. That he dedicated himself to it. He went through a lot, just like we go through. He went through some stuff we ain't gonna never go through. Yeah. But the thing he did most, he delivered. Yeah. So many of our lives are changed because he delivered. And so if you're going to have anything, if there's any vitamins, there's a bunch of them you can take, because I can show it and I can talk about them spiritually. You know, you need the vitamin of decision. You need the vitamin of dedication, and you need the vitamin of delivering.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. We got Brother Garthion back in. Can you grace us with 3 pieces of wisdom to give these brothers, Brother Garthion?
Oh, wait, 3 pieces?
Yeah.
How are we looking on time? Do we have to get off by 7 or no? We good?
Can you hear me?
We nobody told us we had to.
Okay. I just want to make sure we ain't but go ahead. If we
let me look at make sure some of these text messages is not Julius. Go ahead.
Okay, so I would
ahead,
say
I don't see Julius in none of these. Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. I would say quick, responsibility and accountability. Responsibility and accountability. Be men. Be who you were born to be, and find out who you are supposed to be. I think that's so important. A lot of times we're just going about life and we're not trying to figure out who we are. Who am I as an individual? How can I impact? What can I do? Right? But in order for me to do that, I have to study and I have to constantly be in the process of working on self. Yeah. See? I'll be a great father, great husband, great brother, great friend, but I got to work on me. If I'm working on me, these things happen, but I have to be constant. It doesn't stop. A man that goes out in social wisdom never returns. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, said, what is the knowledge of self? You have to know the knowledge of self. We thought that to mean the collective knowledge, and it means that too. But what about the individual knowledge? Who am I? Because what Brother James can take and what Brother Vaun can take and what Brother John can take, Brother Garthion might not be able to take, because I might not be built for that. But what I am built for and what I will go through, I have to be able to find out what that is by staying in the process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Garthion, for stepping back in. Brother Vaun, tell us those 3 pieces of wisdom, and then we're going to close us out.
Man, they dropped so many on us. I'm going to piggyback a little bit, or veggie back as it were. I love that accountability piece. Here's one idea with that. So many women do get pregnant, right? And a lot of, here's an example of accountability. Instead of saying she got pregnant, how about I impregnated her?
That's good.
Because she can't get pregnant by herself. So whatever the statistics are saying or whatever, she didn't get pregnant. You impregnated her. Now, did you impregnate the wrong woman?
That's good.
Right? So that will be one. I would go on and I would say, understand that adversity is not the end of the world, right? Yes. It was Napoleon Hill who said that every adversity brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. Now, oftentimes we get so focused on the adversity, the pain that we're dealing with, that all of our energy goes there. But if it's true that everything has a duality, a polarity, then there's also an advantage that came with that adversity. And I assure you, if you begin studying what might benefit you out of this situation, rather than focusing only on what hurt you out of the situation, you might be surprised at what type of growth that you can get. Here's the last one. I think I'll leave on a relationship one. As it pertains to this new buzzword, it's been around forever, right? But everybody is now talking about submission. Yeah. Right? I'm not going to argue whether or not, what it used to mean, whatever, right? I'm saying that it's an automatic buzzword and then an automatic turnoff for so many people, so many women. I say don't even have the conversation about submission. I've never asked my wife to submit to me. We simply talk about what a healthy level of cooperation looks like, right? So in talking about this healthy level of cooperation, watch this. You'll find that oftentimes you'll get more of what you're looking for in her willingness to cooperate with you, right, than you would have gotten if you just entered the conversation about submission, because a lot of women go deaf immediately once you even start talking about submission because of the negative connotations that it brings with it, right? So if you're having I saw on a TV show the other day, one of the relationship shows that I watched, and he said, well, I think women need to be, come with submission. And immediately she exit stage left. Yeah. Right. Now, if he just started talking about what cooperation looks like, who knows where that might have gone. So I say eliminate the word submission. It's not even necessary. I mean, are we wrestling? What are we doing? Am I trying to submit my woman? All right. Let's just talk about what a healthy level of cooperation looks like, and I think we'll get a lot further in that regard. I'll end on that.
Can I touch on that statement just
Go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead. So here's the thing, because there are steps to every situation, especially in relationships. The greatest individual, of course, is, I always talk about it as far as an example, is the Lord. The Lord gave some steps. He said, don't talk about submitting until you do it to me. See? So when you lead off with a conversation talking about she need to do it, what are you doing? Right. So, here's the thing. The Lord never told you to go say it. He asked you to do it with me first. Yeah. So if you don't know how to do it with me first, you can't even talk about it. Matter of fact, if you do know how to do it with me, you don't even have to talk about it.
Don't even,
because your actions have already shown that it's attractive enough for her to have interest in you because you've submitted to me. Yeah. And you got your spiritual life in line with me and all these steps and processes that now you're attractive. So you don't even have to worry about what comes your way because I'm a sender to you. Anyway, I just wanted to do that.
That's good. That's good. This was really good. Man, this was really good to sit with y'all and all this male wisdom and this to take out your time on your Father's Day from your families. We really appreciate you. And for those who have been watching, make sure that you're share this broadcast. Why? Because this is so many nuggets that have been given and blessed. And these people have poured out the virtue from their bodies, their minds, their spirits. So please share. If you haven't already, go over to all of our YouTube pages. We're going to talk about where they can find you all too. Coach Vaun-The Love Alchemist on all social media platforms, ATR on all social media platforms, and Coach Michelamonè on all social media platforms. Brother John, where can they find you at?
You can find me two ways on every platform. It's either I Am a Testimony, because that's my apparel line I've had for 10 years, and if you pull that up, you should probably see me. And then of course under John McClung Jr. On all of your social medias from a standpoint of your Facebooks. I don't do too much Twitter. Instagram is under I Am a Testimony, and then you can Google me for sure.
Good stuff. Brother James, where can they find you?
Well, same thing on all social media sites. I do my Judas Den show on every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., sometimes 10 a.m., depending on what guests I have on. Also, you can find me on Instagram at Brother King James, where I do a lot of posting on it. Also, I just finished my my YouTube page. It's called the Straight Talk, STRAIT, Straight Talk with Brother James. That's going to be starting soon. That's when I'm going to, Brother Vaughn, I'm going to challenge this Manosphere program, or Manosphere, whatever they got out here, because I see what's going on out here. So, and I got a little bit more leeway on there where I can say a lot more than I can on here on Facebook. But yeah, but that you can find me on, those are the places you can find me at.
Man, we need that stratosphere to be challenged, because it's digging craters into our community right now. It really is. And just real quick, I just had a young lady who said that she wanted to die based off of a conversation with one of this person that we're not going to give him more algorithms for. She wanted to die. And so it's digging craters, and we need the strength of our Black men like y'all, having conversations, reaching out, being our brothers' keepers, and our sisters' keepers, because it's bad.
One more thing, if you don't mind. Every Monday night, I've been doing a series for the last 5 years called Spiritual Message Moments. I do it on Facebook Live at 10:30 in the evening, 7:30 Pacific time. And I have over 200 videos. And based on, even based on the statement you said, the power of words is amazing, because again, if you think about the conversation, if you look back on Judas Den, if you look back on Becoming Better, or you look back on The Love Alchemist, especially Judas Den, when it's the four of us having a conversation.
Yeah.
There's never been a negative conversation ever in what we do. Now, we might talk about some negative things, but every word is encouraging, because it's something that we are trying to lift up in every aspect. You got the heart, mind, body, soul, and spirit, and we touch every area, because they know when I come on, the first thing that come out of my mouth is what, James? I'm gonna speak spiritually, right?
Yeah.
So we got the full balance. So to hear someone say, that is something that words have led them to. We have some great content that all of us are sharing that will make that different. And I think this is one of those moments. And so I'm honored to be part of this today, and especially to have an amazing sister lead this in the questioning that she has provided, and as you say, unfiltered and uncensored. And think about it, we didn't even cuss.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There was no even curse words in this, and there was nothing negative said, and we still are able to make impact with the words that we share.
Amen. Bless you. Brother Vaughn, lead us up out of here.
Hey, family. Hey, let me just say, Brother John, it was hard for me not to cuss, but y'all know I'm a sailor. Hey, family, look, we appreciate y'all, man. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and for that, we are eternally thankful. We love y'all. We appreciate y'all. Peace.
All right.